Dave's spring games are not flowing right now. In fact, a lot of spring games are getting canceled. Mizzou announced on Monday their spring game. On Sunday, their spring game was canceled. Texas has announced their spring game is canceled. USC has announced it. Ohio State has announced it. Multiple other schools are rumored to announce in the coming weeks that the spring game is getting canceled. So you've worked in player personnel. You've worked for multiple programs. You know the value of a spring game in terms of the internal metrics. Is this a good thing for college football, or is this a negative for college football, in your opinion?
Probably depends where you're at. Like I saw Clark Lee and Vanderbilt are having a spring game again, trying to promote the program. They have some faces of the program right now there. Again, we got Diego Pavia, one of the more known faces around the sport, being a Commodore coming back again. I think that's key. Kind of let the fans get around that, some fan engagement. I totally agree why Clark Lee would do it. But I also think we're leaning. I was talking to some guys today. We're going to go to that OTA route. Again, I think spring used to be important. Back before you had the unlimited transfers, you knew the roster was in there. Except you were missing a couple of your freshmen that weren't early enrollees. And those 15 practices were massive, getting reps in, building your depth. Now, you have some guys that won't even be there after the spring. So I don't know why you'd go in and invest much time. You got to do something. I don't think you go all out. Maybe you just do some maybe you do a bunch of glorified walkthroughs, have some shirts, shorts, and you kind of, like I said, you go through your walkthrough, you get your 7-on-7 and stuff in. But again, I think this is where, because of this, you're going to see tackling be an issue in the sport come season. Because again, I used to be the NFL liaison. I always used to ask the NFL guys, the scouts that would be around these programs day in, day out, why is tackling so bad in the sport now? And it's pretty simple. If you don't do something, you're never going to get good at it. And that's again, the teams that tackle and practice are the good teams. Again, I know teams are trying to limit injuries, and that's the big thing here. But I think now overall, I think with how it's going, why would you go all out in the spring? Again, it's got to be a little give and take there. You're trying to protect your players, but you're also not trying to go waste reps on guys that are already planning to leave your program in 3 weeks once you're done with spring. So think in and out. But again, if you're like a team like Vanderbilt, you got to go promote the program. And you have big faces on your team this year. You got to go get them out there. So I totally see why they do it, but I also see why a guy like Sark wouldn't. I know why some people are like, well, you got to get back to the fans and stuff like that. It's like, I get it, but there's other things you can do to supplement that instead of just a spring game. And I think that's why they paid the Texas marketing director big bucks for ideas like that. So overall, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think we saw this coming. Anyone that's been in the sport or been around it saw this coming. I think the best way to go is maybe a 10 OTA type of day in the spring. Again, I don't think anybody's real worried about it. We all kind of saw this coming.
I, from a fan perspective, understand the frustrations. Because for a lot of fans, especially, and you and I know this at the University of Alabama, games are expensive. Tickets are out the wazoo, even for games against Charleston Southern or Chattanooga or Coastal Carolina when they were an FCS program. Tickets were massively expensive, but the spring game was an opportunity for fans to be able to come on in and see what their team could expect going into the year. How you could feel about what are some areas to where you could have excitement watching the game at home. And it was that way at Texas. And it was that way at Auburn, and it is that way at LSU, and it is that way at Georgia. But I also understand that in this new era of college football, especially where the transfer portal, there are 2 windows, and there's the spring window, you're doing 2 things. Number one, you're protecting your roster from being riddled by players to come on in and try and be stolen that are sitting on the bench who may have already decided to enter the transfer portal, but now it's going to up their NIL deal. The other thing is going to give you an opportunity to kind of figure out where are your weaknesses in the roster to where you can go poach teams that are currently having their spring games. Because let's just call a spade, Dave. I don't think Texas is done. I don't think Texas is far from done with its roster. They didn't bring in enough via the portal this offseason to where I feel like they're comfortable going into next year, guaranteeing a spot in the college football playoff. They're in a good spot when it comes to what their roster is, but they want to be an elite level. They want to be at that level to where they feel like that they are, no questions asked, guaranteeing their spot. A team like Vanderbilt, them not having a spring game, maybe does wonders of retaining talent that may get scalped out by Georgia, by Alabama, by Texas, because if they're willing to throw a little bit more NIL money their way, but they also need the spring game. So I agree with you in the sense of why the spring game is going away as a positive. But as a fan perspective, to a lot of places that don't get to go experience the atmosphere of game days, get to experience the moments of what is Saturday afternoon in Tuscaloosa or Auburn or Baton Rouge because they can't make the trip out there. A game like that is the only time that they're going to experience that every single season and have that pride in the community of what is their favorite sport. So you got to find a way to, I think, regroup it. When Nick Saban was there, they always had that fan day in the
Running in the
spring.
gumps, baby.
But they always had that fan day in the spring, in the summer, like in August, where where every single player would get to meet with the fans. They'd sign autographs, they'd take pictures. Like, you got to do something like that to be able to recoup it. But I understand the reasoning with multiple people that currently are frustrated with the spring game going away. What's the reasoning behind it? Especially for fans that go ahead and put their blood, sweat, and tears and are loyalists to a T, even in down seasons. This is their one time where they get to actually see college football at its finest, and it's being taken away from them because of they're trying to protect the roster. Yeah. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. Even if you miss the first few minutes of a game or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can make your picks from the first whistle until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. New FanDuel customers get started with $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet win. Just visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today. That's FanDuel.com/SECU for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Disclaimer: must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, and 18 plus in DC. First online real money wagers only. $5 first deposit is required. Bonus issues with non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a crazy era. I get it. Yeah, because we've asked the common 8 to 5 man to pay for a lot of these rosters. So it's like you said, if that guy's donating, which I do think some of those guys do, like, they let them into certain things. The guys at these certain collectives, if you donate to certain things, like I think Ole Miss does a phenomenal job taking care of their people who do that. But you're right. For the teams that don't, it is a way for certain people to get into the stadium. But I think it's just kind of the lay of the land right now, man. People are trying to figure out new ways with new rules. People don't know rules. It is what it is. But I see it from both sides. I do see the fan frustration, but I also see the teams like Texas being like, dude, well, we're just going to go practice right and have some massive spring. And again, I think spring games have been dying for a couple of years now anyways. Sure. They've been on life support. But it's like you said, I mean, the main reason, I don't think anyone's out there being like, no, the team gets better at A-Day. Like, maybe 5 years ago. But I think now it's kind of – they get better. This turned it into a complete clown show.
They get better at missing A-Day because of, guess what? Their roster is not going to be riddled by losing the third string left tackle to another program. Like, that's what's going to happen at this point, because there's not enough film to put on them to where it's like, oh, they're going to offer a massive deal in NIL. Like, honestly, in my opinion, that's a good thing for some schools, is that your roster is not going to be riddled when it comes to your backups. Because think about a place like Georgia last year. Georgia felt really good with its starters. Guess we had questions with the second teamers, with the third teamers, when you had to turn to those guys that weren't ready to start, because if you had to go ahead and put them in, because everyone else that you thought was ready decided to leave to go ahead and get paid and start elsewhere. So maybe that does do wonders. I don't hate the fact that spring games are going away, as long as you replace it with something prominent. But I understand the reasoning why spring games are going away. It had been dying. You were seeing fewer and fewer fans attend every single year. But you got to be able to recoup it in some different capacity, because if there are fans that truly look forward to those little events in the spring that bring together the community, and more importantly, bring together college football fans at their purest form that truly just enjoy the sport.